Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Brenton and this is my buddy Rolando Garcia.
Hello.
And today we're gonna be doing a color grading tutorial in DaVinci Resolve. So we're gonna be color grading 3 different looks. So we're gonna do S-log2, S-log3 in the .cine kind of profile, and then Redcode. So I'm gonna go through right here. We've got Rolando over here. A little bit of videoception going on.
Yeah,
and
this
so,
is from our past video shoot, right? This is the jib review video or jib setup video.
Yeah.
So you guys have probably already seen this.
So over here, I'm gonna get just a nice frame where we can see Rolando's face, so I can kind of gauge where all my levels are at. So for this one, I'm just gonna use the ASUS color space. So ASUS is a nice, it's a nice color grading tool because it's a tool for every sort of gamut and gamma. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here. So we got Rolando's beautiful face. Go close these clips. So over here I have the Open Effects tab. So I'm gonna add a couple of nodes. So I use Option S on the Mac, and I think it's still Option S on the PC. Okay. So for this one, I'm gonna leave node 1 blank for now because I'm gonna kind of use that for general exposure. And node 2, I'm gonna pop in the ASUS transform. Okay, so I can get to input my color space and gamma. And some of these are tied together, color space and gamma. So here we got the Sony ones. We've got S-log3 and S-log2. Here we go. So Sony S-log2 daylight. So this is going to be the closest to our starting point. And this transforms it to ASUS, and we don't want that right now because we're actually going to be delivering in Rec 709 just for YouTube purposes. Rec 709. There we go. So already it looks a lot more contrasty and a lot more saturated, but not too saturated. Okay, so now I'm gonna go over back to my first LUT, so I don't need this guy anymore. And I'm gonna come over here and mess with my offset. So my offset right here in my primaries is cool because it just affects the whole image the same. So you can see on the scopes right here. So I've got these scopes just set to basic 10-bit color, so 0 to 1023. So I've got the offset right here. So I'm just gonna pull these guys down. You're gonna see the whole waveform shift.
How do I get those nodes up?
For these guys, you're gonna wanna go to the color tab. And the whites are kind of clipping in this shot, and that is one of the downsides to S-log2 is you don't have quite as much dynamic range as S-log3 or some of the other profiles. But that's why I'm doing this tutorial, because it's kind of difficult to color grade S-log2 a lot of the times. So full screen, here we go. That's looking a lot more natural. Okay, so next, after I kind of get my general exposure set, so I'm gonna put this down just a little bit more. Okay, so after I get my exposure set, I'm gonna go past the LUT correction. And then I'm gonna start playing with the curves. And this is also the point where I would set my white balance if the white balance was off. So I might play with the white balance just a little bit, just warm it up just a hair. I could go crazy with this and make it look all wonky, but I don't wanna do that. I'm going for the natural look right here. So this is the third node over here is where I can play with my curves. So I can add kind of like an S curve if I want a more like punchy, contrasty look.
You go to the curve right here, right? Is that where you hit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this will add a little bit more punch to the image. I don't think I'm gonna do this for this particular image, just because I don't have a lot of dynamic range to play with already. So it ends up getting a little too crunchy and contrasty for me.
How do you do your preview window like you're doing?
I go Command F for full screen. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of this S curve. I don't think I want anything this contrasty. I'm gonna reset this node. So if you right click a node, you can reset the grade on the node, which is a really helpful tool just to go back to your beginning and kind of start fresh on a node. So what I am gonna do on this one is actually add a little bit of saturation because I like kind of a poppy, more saturated look to the images. So saturation's right here underneath the gain setting on your wheels. So I'm gonna pull saturation just up a little bit and just kind of eyeball it. So 60% I usually find is a pretty good spot where it looks pleasing to my eyes. I'm really used to a lot of like the Canon colors, so red really pops in a lot of my stuff. So this kind of gives me something similar to that. And this is kind of where color correction ends and the grading process begins. After you've made it look more natural like this, then you can kind of fine tune and add stuff that you like to see in an image. So one thing I like to see in an image a lot is having the blues turn just a little bit more cyan. So I'm gonna do that on another node. And if you get enough nodes in here, you can actually run out of video memory pretty fast. I used to edit on it was an older AMD graphics card on my PC, and I would constantly run out of video memory. But a lot of the Macs don't seem to have that issue, just because I think their software is written better. So I don't typically have the problem on this computer. So your hues are over here next to the curves. So you're gonna go through a couple of tabs. So hue versus hue. And this is how you change a red hue to be like an orange hue, or whatever adjacent hue on your color wheel. You can kind of shift it. And if you were to take all your hues and make a point, you can shift all the hues like this, like later. Okay, so we've got blue, popping a little more cyan. So you can see with, without, with. It's very subtle. And so this is, a lot of people refer to this as like airy blue, because airy is emulating codec film stock, which has a kind of a cyan look to it when it gets really blue, like when you look at the sky in codec film. And so this is something I usually do to make it more film-like. You'll see on some of the other cameras that blue will look different on different cameras. There's no like set standard for everyone to use for blue, so it's kind of subjective. Okay, so we get this guy. So another thing I like to do is kind of mess with my shadows a little bit. And I can go down to luminance versus saturation. And sometimes I like to take saturation out of the shadows. And this can help the image look a little less noisy if you have a lot of chroma noise. S-log2 can have a lot of chroma noise, especially if you are shooting at a higher ISO on like an A7S2. Taking saturation out of your shadows can help clean up that image a little bit, and it'll look a little bit better on YouTube. So this isn't like a one-size-fits-all kind of deal, so I use it sometimes. But it's something I was taught when I was learning how to color grade at my school. I think some of the footage I actually have in the test here, I think I forgot to black shade calibrate the camera actually before I started shooting, because I turned on the camera and I just started shooting immediately, and you can't do that on a red camera, which is why it's a horrible run and gun camera. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here we go. We've got,
I think even on the Komodo, it's like 10 minutes.
Oh, probably, yeah. I don't know, I haven't used the Komodo yet. Let's see. Okay, we got that node. So I'm liking the way this is looking right now. Playback is struggling. This is an old 2013 MacBooks. So we go before and after. So I'm definitely, you can see my waveform right here. I've got the exposure pushing, it's called exposing to the right when you're looking at a little histogram. And then on this waveform kind of monitor, it looks, you know, a little tall or a little upper, I guess. I don't know what you call it.
Upper.
So that's a much more balanced waveform monitor. Mm-hmm. Even though our sky is clipping a little bit, it's a cloudy day, so it's hard to get away with that sometimes unless you have like loads of like fill and like bounce. Okay, so I'm happy with this image, and I'm gonna add another node with Option S, and I'm gonna start messing with my shadows. So right here I've got my wheels, and I like to add a little bit of cyan into the shadows a little bit and then offset.
So right now you're directly affecting just the shadows and nothing else in the image, right?
It does affect a lot of the image. So lift isn't necessarily just shadows because you're gonna see it kind of stretched out.
Oh, I see. But you use that to affect the shadows, right? That's what
Yeah.
they should. Yeah.
So you'll see the shadows here. They kind of get a blue tint to them. And then to compensate and make sure it doesn't bleed into the midtones too much, I'll go to gamma, which is your mids, and I'll do, counter to that, so I'll go more red if I'm going cyan. There we go. Sorry, the node wasn't on. So I'm gonna make this a little more subtle. So
yeah.
Boop, and then compensate. And you can kind of see it over here in the waveform monitor as well.
So you compensate with the gamma.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so this is what I would call grading. This is an aesthetic look. It's not necessarily good or bad. It's just different. So a bit too much there.
And then now this is the same sort of process you would go through to try to grade something.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same, depending on like just every single type of like file type, right? Same thing with Red, same thing with A7S.
Yeah, that's why a lot of grading LUTs, you have to get your image to that Rec 709 point. So you have to have either a correction LUT or use the ASIS transform tool to get it to that Rec 709 point. That way when you have like a creative LUT, the creative LUT knows where you're starting from, which is typically Rec 709. Okay. This is a fun looking image. So after this point, I would typically add another node and do a little bit of sharpening. So I like to go over here to the sharpen tool and change my radius to like 49. And that adds just a touch of sharpening to the image. There we go, so we can kind of see the difference. It's really subtle. I don't like to overly sharpen my stuff, but if you want to see like dramatic examples, let's see. So here's a dramatic example of sharpening, like way too much sharpening, like not a pleasing image anymore.
Looks like someone drew over my face, or like some kind of
it's like VHS. It looks bad. So 47 is pretty high on the sharpening, so I'll keep it right here. The more nodes you have in Resolve, the longer it's usually going to take to render. So this.
Why is that? How does that work? How does the software, process nodes? Because by the third node, your computer was already kind of.
Oh yeah.
How is it processing that exact same file? Like, is it layering up? Like,
yes. So think of each node as kind of like a linear
stacking
layer. Yeah.
Wow.
It's super processor intensive, especially for your graphics. Mostly for graphics for this kind of stuff. And this has only integrated graphics.
So it's like having layers on your timeline almost. You're just duplicating the layers. And
very similar to that.
Interesting.
So I'm gonna take the sharpening off right now just to save some memory. And then go to my final stage of grading, which isn't actually grading. It's just film grain. So, where is film grain?
Let's do some crazy stuff.
Film grain, yeah. Okay, so my starting point typically for film grain is gonna be 16mm film grain because I like the way it like shows up when you're looking on like YouTube and stuff like that. To just be more kind of in your face. 35mm film grain on this is very fine, very detailed, so it doesn't always show up. Okay. So there's a couple of cool advanced tools right here. So in the kind of H.264 web playback world, grain actually looks really bad in your shadows. So I actually turn it down quite a lot if I'm delivering to web. And I'll crank them in the highlights sometime if I want to really, just a really artsy kind of look. And so I'll keep them, whatever, same in the midtones, drop the shadows and crank the highlights. So you can kind of see a little bit of grain in these highlights now. Let's see if they show up. I don't see them yet, but I haven't upped my grain strength yet. So let's see, let's view just the grain. So this is the grain. Playing back at 3 frames a second. Oh yeah.
Embedding that into our image.
So let me turn off some of these nodes just so we can see some of this. So here's our grain. That's not grain.
That's grain.
Here's some of our grain. playing back at 5 frames a second. And I'm gonna up the grain strength right here, grain strength. There we go. So that adds a little bit more contrast to your grain.
Look at those scopes though. Scopes looks really interesting when you put grain on it.
Yeah, it treats the image kind of like you're adding diffusion to the image. If you diffuse light coming into like a camera sensor, it'll change the waveform. So it's like, it's weird. It's like adding a pro mist in a lot of ways, but in post. So yeah, no grain. It's really interesting the way it kind of blends stuff together. There we go. Has much more of an older school feel now. I like it a lot. Okay, so let's move on from S-log2 to S-log3. So I'm gonna go over to the next clip. Boop. Okay, this is my beautiful wife. Okay.
This makes this process a lot
slower.
slower.
Oh yeah. So one of the reasons that this footage is actually a lot harder to play back is because it's 4K and it's 10-bit and it's 4:2 too. This is FS7 footage. So I'll put it over here. So we've got the LUT applied. So here we've got, you can see it actually clips the highlights when we put the LUT on there. And so I'm gonna use the first node and pull that down because I overexposed this footage on purpose. Because S-log3 is noisy. There we go. Dang. That umbrella looks clipped still.
I think it is clipped.
The only thing. Yeah, I don't know if it is. If I pull my gain down. Sorry, I'm gonna reset. Pull my gain down. Okay. So we're gonna try to grade this 2 ways. One is gonna be with the LUT. I'll see what kind of look I can get going with it. So I'm gonna add a little bit of S-curve right here. Make sure this LUT is applied. No, yeah, I don't clip, I'm fine. Pull that gain down more. Yeah, I'm not clipped, I'm fine, I'm right on the edge. And pull this up a little bit. So have a little bit more general exposure. Keep the highlights down. Yeah, creating S-log3 can be interesting. Okay, I kind of like that exposure now. There we go. And so here we go, add a little bit of curves to make it pop. Pull the shadows down just a little bit, and I'm gonna add a little bit of saturation in the same node. Obviously, it's not gonna be quite as saturated of a look because it is a cloudy day. And I kind of like this look. That looks nice.
Yeah, it looks like a cloudy day.
There we go. That looks really natural, really nice. I don't think the skin tones are where I want them to be, but it is a cloudy day. And you kind of gotta take what you can get sometimes. Okay, so now this is where I kind of start grading. And very similar to what we did earlier with the S-log2 footage, I can go over here and go to the lift settings and pull in some of that cyan. There we go. You see how it affects the image. And go to gamma and go to more red-orange and compensate.
Is that your go-to?
I think it's what I like to demonstrate color grading with because it's really visible to see, and it usually works on most clips because they're very common color palettes for a lot of stuff. It's a little extreme. We'll go back a little bit. There we go. It's a little bit more pleasing. And that's a pretty nice looking image now. I like that. So a lot of times what I'll do in Resolve when it's really hard to play stuff back is I'll actually let it go ahead and either optimize the media or make proxies, and I can scrub the footage. Sony XAVC-S footage is notorious for playback because it's so CPU intensive. And so I'll just show you right off the bat here to master settings. And if I just want a really easy optimize media, go to ProRes 422. Let's see, proxy media resolution, usually about quarter.
So what are you doing exactly right now? You're optimizing how DaVinci is processing the codec?
Yeah, so this is actually transcoding the media on the fly for you. So I can enable this, say after 5 seconds, or I can say after 4 seconds if I want it really responsive. And I can basically take the step that a lot of people do at Media Encoder in like Premiere and put it into the same program, which is really smart. So I go to this, and then I go over to, I think it's my timeline. Where is that? Render cache. So I go to Smart Cache. And now it will smart render the clip. And I have a little red line right here to let me know this has not been rendered. So I can go over here. So boom, right here. If I let it sit just a little bit, you can actually see it better in the editor. It's already rendered that little bit. So if I change my in and out points, I can kind of let it know what I want it to render. So let's see if it picks up for rendering. I'll wait a couple seconds. Back at it again, Daniel. There we go.
Is that from a movie?
No, it's a meme. It's a YouTube, like
back at it again, Daniel.
2017 or 2016 or something.
Living in the past. That's so...
Memes are forever.
So 4 years ago.
So this is from the Red Epic W. So this is some slow motion. I think this is in 6K, so it's cropping in on the sensor. So we're gonna go over here. Redcode's a little different because all of your color space and your gamma can be handled in the raw controls. So to go over to the raw controls, we actually go over to the camera panel right here. So camera raw, and right now it's set for project, but I wanted to set it to clip. So boop, this opens up all my raw controls, so I have full access to my ISO, my tone mapping, and my color space. So right here, I'm gonna change my color space actually. So red, white, gamut, RGB is the very large, very wide color space that allows you to basically do anything. So if you wanna do HDR, if you wanna do like DCI-P3 for like cinema, like projector work, or I can go boop, down to Rec 709 for my screen right here. And so this just basically takes that map and makes it nice and small just for your Rec 709 red, green, and blue primaries. And then gamma curve, this is just BT 1886, so this is the also Rec 709 standard. You could also set it for something like log3G10 if you want a flat log image to work with and just manually grade it. But for my stuff, I'm just gonna do BT 1886 to make it quick. Okay, so over here, I only need maybe 2 or 3 nodes for this, just because so much of the processing and correction is already done in the camera raw settings, which is cool. So I'm gonna change the tone map to, actually I'll keep this at medium, and then I'm gonna change my highlight roll off to soft. And you can see it changes the waveform right here. So I'll go back to medium, boop. It's a little bit more contrasty in the highlights, and soft, boop, kind of rolls them off like that pretty naturally. And I'll do a more extreme example. So no highlight roll off. You can see I've got a little hot spot right here now. So a little hot spot, looks like it's clipping. I'm gonna go to very soft and just crush them. And I don't like to use very soft because I think it can look a little unnatural, because it ends up pulling down your white point, which isn't always what I want to do when I'm grading.
Yeah, it looks like it was overexposed and you were trying to correct for it.
Yeah.
Like there's no info there.
So I find soft to be kind of the sweet spot for a lot of stuff I'm doing. And then this is a new thing for Reds, is chroma noise reduction. You can actually check the box and it'll chroma noise reduce during playback. I'm gonna uncheck it right now so you can kind of see what the noise levels look like. And they are pretty good, pretty under control. There's like a little bit of chroma noise there, but it doesn't show up unless you're looking at a really big monitor. And then I'll turn that on. And yeah, it definitely looks like it cleans up a little bit. Okay, so this is a nice looking image right now. I am gonna play with it a little bit. So right now we're at ISO 500. I believe that's what it was shot at. But I might pull it down just a little bit. So now we're at 400. And our white balance is daylight balance, so 5600 Kelvin. So I can show you some cool things. We can just go like 3200. Boom, and that's obviously like way too blue. But if you wanted to do like a weird like day for night sort of feel, or night for day, I forget what it's called. You can have a lot of really good fine-tuning controls on a lot of these raw formats. Okay, so over here, got our curves. So I'm gonna add a little bit of that. Nah, I'm gonna keep it there. Okay, so with it, maybe crush the shadows a little bit. More moody. There we go. This will give us a little bit deeper shadows there. There we go. Okay, that's a pretty good looking starting point. I like where the saturation lays already, because Red kind of handles a lot of that for you when they map it from their, wide gamut or raw and map it to Rec. 709. So I really like the way the saturation sits already. So I'm not really going to touch that, and I'm going to play with the curves again, or the the wheels again. So I can go over to the wheels, a little bit of cyan there. Pull those out. Make it a little more subtle. Maybe play with the red curves here. This is a fun one to do. I like playing with the reds. I can get a bunch of cyan in the shadows if I do this. So there's a cool look I can get. Oops. So it doesn't scrub too bad. Oops, wrong clip. There we go. Okay, so there's our final result, and I could add like a little bit of sharpening. Go to the sharpen and then change the radius a little bit. And so I could add just a little bit of pop to the image for my face there. Doesn't look too bad. Okay, so final clip. This is some 4K red footage. I think I shot this at like 120 frames a second, so, but it was really pretty sunset, and I was able to take the red camera out and play with it. So same thing, I'll go to the clip settings so I have full control over that, and switch this over to Rec. 709. There we go, now we can see all our saturations, and I'm gonna go over to soft roll off. There we go. And then 6000 Kelvin, so nice sunset kind of look. And medium chroma noise reduction, not too bad. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here. I think I'm just gonna play with the curves right now. So I'll do everything, and I think I want kind of a silhouette look. Let's really pull this down. See what I get. There's our silhouette. Yeah, one thing that's really nice about red footage is you can push it really far in comparison to 8-bit or even 10-bit. So if I push and like pull down all those shadows to be really deep, it actually stretches your midtones a lot, which is where you get a lot of like chroma and color compression artifacts. So stretching your midtones can actually break an image on a lot of 8-bit cameras and some 10-bit cameras. But on a red, it's recording 16-bit RAW. It might actually be 12-bit RAW, I'm not sure, but they call it 16-bit RAW. So when you stretch it, you still have all that information to play with, and you don't get any banding. And so if we were to stretch this image in, 8-bit, it would definitely give some banding, especially right around here where we pulled it down.
In the shadows.
Yeah. I can make it a little more like realistic also if I want to like change my white balance. Here we go, we're chugging. No, go back out. Ah. There we go, okay. So I'm gonna go back to the raw controls. So the raw controls don't actually apply to any individual tab, they apply to the actual clip. So I can go over to my white balance, and let's say I want to do something crazy like 3200 Kelvin. So
oh, that looks really
that looks kind of cool. It's kind of like a day for night kind of look. That's interesting. I haven't done this to this clip. It's cool. Because we like crush the shadows so much, it definitely looks like day for night. Could be like the moon, you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
If I like, what if I desaturate
I think
it?
it just looks like a really cool look.
Yeah.
You know?
How do I, let's see.
It looks a little too extreme for a day for night.
Take all the saturation out. That's weird. I don't know what's affecting it. Yeah, it might be just super delayed.
Chugging.
It's just chugging.
A little extreme there.
Yeah.
That looks cool.
I think it's applying now. The lumens versus saturation. Hue versus hue. I could take blue, push it more cyan, and that would affect most of the image. Yeah, wow. That looks cool. It's a very stylistic image. Well, I think that's going to be all we're going to talk about today in the video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. If you have any questions about S-log2, S-log3, even Canon log. I've been working in Canon log a lot lately. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe if you want to see some more content. Leave a link to Rolando's Instagram if you want to ask him questions and stuff. Don't forget to like the video if you want to see some more content, and hit that bell notification icon also so you can see when I go live and stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!